everyone, welcome to my studio. Right now I'm working on making this design into a mosaic that is 30 inches by 75 inches. It is going to go around the sides of a fountain along with two other mosaics. This is the first of three. They're all in the theme of Moses. This one is Moses striking the rock, and I'm starting with the figures. Once I get the figures done, I will move on, I think, to the water. Let me show you where I'm at. I finished Moses. Finished these two figures last week and almost finished with the little baby and done with the woman. So this week I'm going to move on to these two figures. And I'm going to start with the clothing. I started by picking out the blue that I'm going to use for this fellow right here. I'm going to lean into the bluish green side of things on this blue tunic. And then on this blue one, I'm going to push the purples a little bit. I don't want to go too saturated with the color because that might seem a little artificial. So I'm kind of trying to bring the tones down just a bit. Like this is not a super bright yellow, but it is still yellow. I want to keep the blues and greens and just the cooler colors going with the figures. And that can only be achieved through their clothing. So that's where I'm going with it. 3 shades of the purpley blue was a little bit more difficult, but I think I'm going to go with this one. Maybe parts of that. It's a little bit too reddish purple. I'm going to go more blue. And then this one is lovely. Look at all these other ones I pulled that just aren't, they're just not quite right. And then this is more of the dark color that I use for the blue, but I think I'll use it here if I need it. So I really only have a couple colors. I pulled another one up there. Maybe I'll be able to use some of that part over there. We'll see. I'll make it work. I put the shelf paper down and I'm ready to make the pattern. Here I go. Put all this away though. I was really digging through looking for the right purples. Notice that this glass is slightly translucent and I can see the mesh grid behind the glass. Well, I want to show you something. Here is the mesh grid. When I put it on something white, it pretty much disappears. So when the grid disappears. So when we go to install, we're going to be using white thinset to install it. You won't see this dark surface underneath. You will only see the white thinset and that grid will essentially disappear. Now I don't want to use translucent glass on purpose, but this one happened to be the right tone, and so I'm going to be using it a little bit on this outfit. For the most part, I try to use opaque glass that doesn't have any problem with the grid showing. That's it. or two bad breaks with scoring this hair. For instance, I scored this around the curve and it was a little bit too far, so it broke right here. Here's the piece that broke off. And the problem is there's a score line right in the middle of it. I don't know if you can see that. So instead of being able to possibly use this piece, it's got the score line. I guess it goes like this. So I can't use it. And then the same with this piece here. It's got a little score line there, and I don't want that score line. So in order to get a bigger piece, I may just cut this down a little bit so that I have a piece that's a little bit bigger and come all the way to the tip and have this as one. I am going to maybe cut this into pieces down here so that I can get that zigzag on the hair, but I'm gonna have to deal with those bad breaks first. I've got this hair how I want it, looking wet. I'm missing a few pieces up here and some of the skin on his neck, but I think I'm going to glue this in place first and then cut those pieces and stick them in after the fact. I did glue the ear already, so just the hair to go. To start this other boy, and he has some water being splashed on him. I think I'm going to put more than just these 3 droplets. I want to add maybe some more, or just make them ahead of time so I have them and I can see if I want to use them. And how I've been making these perfect little circles is with my water jet cutter that I have for glass. That's a joke. I don't have a water jet cutter. Of course, I've got my hand tools. That's how I cut my little circles. Here's how I cut circles for water droplets. I start with a square that's the approximate size of the droplet I want to make. This is kind of a rectangle. And then I cut off the corners. I nip them. And then I just nip it until it is more rounded. So depending on how small it is, these are pretty small nips just to round it out. When it gets about as round as I can make it, like this, I will take it to the grinder. My grinder set up, I have a lamp so I can see what I'm doing, a jar of water in case I need to add water to the sponge, place to lay pieces when I'm finished grinding them because they're usually wet. And then I put this piece of plastic, I just taped it on here with packing tape so that the spray doesn't hit me in the face. And I've taken off one of the pieces of rubber so I can access it. And then I've got this plastic folder thing that Mr. Splash or whatever it's called to prevent splash from hitting the wall. I usually grind with both hands, but for demonstration purposes, I will try to do it with one hand. I'm just smoothing it down so that it's more rounded looking and less jiggy-jaggy. I'm done grinding it. It looks pretty good. So I'm gonna make a few more. I'm not sure where I'm gonna put them, but I do need some eventually. I wanna have more than what I actually have drawn here. Working on the hair here, and I do have a pattern piece, but I wanted to talk about the color. I want the hair to be dark brown just because of the region of the world that these folks are from, and also their hair is wet, and hair tends to look darker when it's wet. So I have chosen this dark brown to make his hair, and now for his hair I am actually using the same dark brown. It just happens to have some lighter streaking in it. So I put the pattern piece on here, and I'm going to be cutting it out shortly. I've got the hair cut out how I want it, and now I'm placing these bubbles on here. So when I cut it apart to glue it down, then I will just leave a space for the bubble and stick the bubble in there. That's it. Oh, I'm going to put a couple on the face as well. Actually got an ear right here, so I'm gonna have to cut this piece to make space for that ear. Maybe I'll have some hair hanging down that way. I'll take a look at it and see if I like it. I might just cut it off there. This week. I did not quite finish these two figures, but I really got pretty far. And overall, here's the whole thing. With my lamp right there. That's putting it together. Thanks for watching. See you next time.